Pinball is a thing that's been around way longer than video games, but it didn't take long for pinball video games to be a thing, and there's certainly been plenty over the years. Today I'm actually going to be looking at all the different pinball games I have in my collection, which is actually a lot more than I initially thought. Some of them are good, some of them are quite frankly shit, but you know, let's take a look. Pokemon Pinball. I think this might actually be the first pinball game I ever owned as a child, and it's one that's pretty damn good. I still bust out this one every now and again when I'm bored. This pinball game has two tables to play on, one for each of the original versions of Pokemon, and like you would in the main series of Pokemon, you have to catch Pokemon by doing certain things on the board. Both tables have their own unique ways of starting the Pokemon catching. On the red table you have a Bellsprout, and on the blue board you have a Cloyster. Once you start the Pokemon catching, you have 2 minutes to catch them, and you have to hit whatever that board's Pokemon bumpers are. In the red version you have a Voltorb to hit, and in the blue version you have a Shelder to inflict animal cruelty on. Once you've hit these Poké Bumpers 6 times, the Pokemon will appear on the board and you have to hit it till you catch it. This mechanic is definitely one of the main reasons I come back to this game, because it gives me a good reason other than just getting a high score to play the game, as like in the main series game you just want to catch them all. There's also evolving in this game that you activate by hitting a Ditto in the red version and a Slowpoke in the blue version. When this happens you have to hit certain points on the board and then collect XP to level up and evolve your Pokemon. You also have to try and travel to different towns from the games, and this determines what Pokemon you can catch at any one time. One of my favourite parts of the game is the little mini games you get when you catch free Pokemon. These are also a good way to rack up your score, and if you beat a mini game you'll get a different one next time when you catch free Pokemon, which is pretty cool. This is just a very good example of translating a game into another genre. They managed to nail all the key parts of Pokemon and actually make it a fun and enjoyable pinball experience. Add into the mix mostly great and responsive controls and that amazing music, and you're onto a winner in my books. Kirby's Pinball Land. Here's another example of a Nintendo property perfectly being translated into another game genre. Kirby has, like Mario, starred in quite a lot of games that aren't just the usual platformers you'd usually find him in, to varying degrees of success, and this is one of the better side Kirby games, I'd say. It's up there with his best, definitely. In Kirby's Pinball Land you have 3 different boards to choose from, and they basically get harder and harder when you go from left to right. Each of these 3 levels has 3 different screens for you to work your way through. You only lose your life if you manage to fall to the bottom of the 3 screens, but you do have a little floating platform thing that will give you another chance if you manage to time a button press well enough. But every time you have to use it, it gets harder and harder. On all these maps you have to work your way to the top of the boards and beat whatever task you have to do to reveal the way to the boss. Each board in the game has its own boss fight for you to do, and once you've beaten all 3 of these board bosses you have a final boss battle with King Dedede. And if you beat him, the game just takes you back again, as after all this is a game about high score and not about beating the game so much. I always found the best way to get a high score in this game is just to stay around the first level spamming the football minigame that can give you a fuckload of points if you're good at it. And then also just taking on the first stage boss, but purposely dying before you beat them. But obviously it's a lot more fun to just go for it and see what happens, but I basically did this just to wipe the score off the board that the person who owned the game before me had left. The controls for the game are tight and responsive, and everything you would want from a pinball game's controls. It definitely feels like my favourite controlling out of the ones I'm looking at today. Being that this is technically a Kirby game, you get some goddamn awesome music as well, as you would expect, and it's definitely a fun time and still worth playing today. Definitely one of my favourite games to play on the toilet. Mario Pinball. In this pinball game, Mario and Peach have been brutally mangled into weird human pinballs, and you're going to do the usual shit of saving Princess Peach, but this time in pinball form. In this game you have to work your way through the game's various boards, collecting stars and coins like you would in any other Mario game. All of the boards are multi-level and full of different objectives for you to do, and for a pinball game it's actually quite well fleshed out. But for whatever reason I was just quite disappointed with this game after I played it, and I just can't get into it, and I don't know why. There's different items and boss fights that are pretty cool, but I just don't find this game fun. I think it's something about the way your Mario Pinball controls. It just feels off and not at all satisfying to use. It doesn't feel like you have much control over where the ball is going to go, and for a game where that is literally all you're doing, that's a bit of an issue. And I also think something about the way they've structured the game puts me off a bit, because it's less about high score and more about working your way through the game's different worlds, and quite honestly that's not what I really want out of a pinball game. I just want a nice jump in, try and beat the high score kind of pinball game. I mean, it's not awful by any means, but when I've got Pokemon Pinball and Kirby Pinball, why should I play this? You know, that said, it does have some nice graphics that kind of remind me of Super Mario RPG, so that's a good thing, I guess. Sonic Pinball Party. Now, this is one time where I'll pick Sonic over Mario, which is very rare as I tend to prefer Mario most of the time. But I'm a bit biased with Mario, as Super Mario All-Stars was the first game I ever played when I was free. But, as I just said, Mario Pinball was a game I frankly thought was a bit shit, and this Sonic Pinball Party game is far better. It has some pretty nice graphics and some pretty goddamn great music, which is a lot of redone versions of songs from other games, but who cares, they sound great. And the main part of the game, the actual pinball, is solid, and that's the thing that matters the most. It plays very well, unlike the Mario game, where it felt like you were constantly fighting against the weird physics of the game. This game is definitely more of what I wanted from a pinball game. There's a straight up arcade mode where you can choose one of the two tables, the Sonic table and the Nights into Dreams table, and they're both pretty fun to play on. There's also a story mode in which you go through a pretty bog standard story that gives you contrived reasons to play pinball against other Sonic characters, with you having to do different kind of challenges to win. My only problem with the game is, quite honestly, the tables are quite bare, and there's also some quite bad frame rate issues whenever there's extra stuff on the board, but it's not that bad that it ruins the experience overall. This game is definitely worth a purchase if you want a good solid pinball title for your GBA. Austin Powers Pinball. It's safe to say I'm quite a big fan of the Austin Powers trilogy of films. I mean, I even have this awesome Austin Powers figure which I found, which kicks ass. I'm a big enough fan of it to say, yes, I bought this game because of that. I mean, I saw it for £1 in a game shop last year and I couldn't resist buying it for a laugh. And it's, well, a pinball game? You have two tables, one called International Man of Mystery and one called The Spy Who Shagged Me. And they both play and look practically the same. You have a few different modes you can select for each table, but they just determine how many lives you'll have and all that. It plays pretty goddamn badly, to be honest with you. The pinball has no weight to it and it feels like you're hitting around a rubber bouncy ball. The flippers in equal measure have little presence and it really feels unrewarding to play. The graphics kind of remind me of that Space Cadet pinball thing you get for free with Windows. Everything just looks blurry and horrible, kind of like someone smudged Vaseline all over the TV screen, which isn't exactly that appealing, to be bloody honest with you. But to be fair, I wasn't exactly expecting a masterpiece of a game, but, you know, I at least expected some sort of competence. I mean, I can't play this anymore, let's move on, it's offending my eyes. Elemental Pinball. This game is actually a game from my childhood, and I have a certain amount of nostalgia for it. And I don't know why, because it's shit, and it's the most budgety budget title ever. I remember seeing it for about £5 in, of all places, Co-op, and I thought, I'll ask my mum to buy it for me. I quite enjoy me some pinball games. And it delivered on being a pinball game, at least. And it's not surprising that it's shit, given that it's from the king of shit budget titles, Midas Interactive Entertainment. I have a few of their titles, and yeah, they're all pretty shitty apart from their clone of Dodgeball from the NES, which is pretty damn good. I may need to do a video on all their shit games one day. I'm working on getting all their crap. They can be like my LJN. Well, you have 3 tables to choose from, Disco, C and Jester, and they're pretty much all the same shit table reskinned 3 times. There's basically nothing to do on this table, well, nothing interesting anyway, and the physics are so bad. The ball physics have a little bit more weight than the Austin Powers game, but it's still bloody shit. The main problem is the power of the flippers. They strike with the power of an asthmatic ant carrying heavy shopping up a particularly steep hill. Whenever you hit the ball, it barely goes anywhere because of the janky physics. You tend to die a lot because it just ends up in the middle area where you can't hit it more often than not. And don't even get me started on the goddamn awful music. What the fuck is this song? It sounds like the Mortal Kombat theme took a few lines of coke off a stripper's butt. So, it's not good. How the fuck did I enjoy this at one point? What the fuck is wrong with me? Worms Pinball. This sounds like it's going to be the most terrible cash-in piece of shit. And it probably will be, but I don't know until I try it, I guess. I've always been a big fan of the Worms series, which is why I ended up buying this game, because I wanted to own all the PS1 Worms games. When you start the game up, you get a choice between 2 tables, the Worms table and the World Rally Fever table. I don't know why the fuck this is here. Why didn't they just, I don't know, have Worms and the Worms Armageddon table or something? Right, anyway, onto the actual tables themselves. They're both pretty much the same feel-wise. They both have that same cramped up camera angle that they've chose that obscures a lot of the screen, so when the ball goes up to the top of the table, it's really easy to lose track of where it's gone, which leads to a lot of deaths. That wouldn't be so much of a problem if the flippers were the least bit useful. Again, they feel laggy and not powerful enough to even hit the ball that far. This game is definitely just another example of Team 17 cashing in on the Worms franchise like they always do. How many times have they remade Worms now? It's got to be in the bloody double digits. If you can believe it, this dumpster fire of a pinball game is also on Steam, and I can't for the life of me see why, but it's there for some reason, and it's on GOG, figures. So yeah, this is a game. It's not a good game. Seems like the Game Boy just does pinball better than the PS1 apparently. Well, there you have it. There's a look at all of the pinball games in my collection. I really didn't know I'd have that much to say about all of them, but I managed it somehow. I might do a second one of these when I get a few more pinball games. I really want to get the Kiss pinball game on the PS1, and I also want to get the Ruby and Sapphire Pokemon pinball on the Game Boy Advance at some point. I used to have that, but haven't had it in a while. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.